Okay. Really? Yeah. What did you say? Oh, okay. Government Operations Committee for Monday, April 19th is called to order. Does anyone have personal orders? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Representatives Byrd, Calfee, Cochran, Crawford, Dixie, Faison, Johnson, Lafferty, Lamar, Littleton, Rudder, Stewart, Warner, Vice Chairman Reedy, Chairman Reagan.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. As we have no personal orders, let's go ahead and begin our calendar. Item number 1 on our agenda is House Bill 1538 by Chair Lady Weaver.
Motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized to explain your bill.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, members.
Before you begin, the clarity for the committee. There is an amendment traveling with your bill. It's 7155, correct?
The amendment is 7155. I have
Right, and
7288.
There is an amendment that needs to be put on in this committee, which is 7288. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Motion on the amendment.
We have a motion and a second on the amendment. We're going to put that on there and have you discuss it.
All right.
All in favor of adding amendment drafting code 7288 to House Bill 1538 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The amendment is on the bill. Chair Lady Weaver, you are recognized to explain your bill as amended.
Thank you ever so much. Again, this piece of legislation will form a separate department. The mission of the Cooperative Disability Investigations Program is to, in a nutshell, combat fraud by investigating statements and activities that raise suspicion of disability fraud. And so this would be a separate independent agency. And the amendment that we added establishes the Independent Disability Investigative Unit that has its own agents selected by the federal United States Social Security Agency in order to commit solely to this investigative mission of disability fraud investigation as stated in the naming of the unit in this bill. So it's fully funded by the feds. There is no cost to the state whatsoever. They're entirely separate unit. They're going to be parked under the, that's what we had to work out with this amendment, Chairman. We had to find out where they were going to be parked under to be administrated part of this bill. And so in order for that to be, for them to be administrative, they're going to be under F&A and the Office of Investigative Inspection General, excuse me. It's been a long weekend. I'm trying to get back in the sync here. Just bear with me here. So basically what we're trying to do is do what all of us are sent here to do, and that is be good stewards of the people's taxpayer money. And there are people out there that are getting disability money that should not be getting it. It should go to the people that are sincerely disabled and need to have their help, and we just can't have people gaming the system. So by setting up this separate entity, which Tennessee is the lead on this, in other words, they're looking to us to, again, help save the people of Tennessee a bunch of money. Does that make any sense to you? Or I will take questions if you want to ask me further questions. I've talked about this throughout the whole process of the bill, but we had to add this amendment to, in other words, everybody knows their marching orders, so this amendment needed to be added so people knew where their lane was, if that makes sense.
Members, do we have questions of the sponsor? Normally, when we have a new entity created, this committee has to put a sunset on it, but this already has a time limit on it, so no sunset requirement from this
Correct.
committee is required. Do we have questions concerning agency creation, rules, or sunsets? Seeing none, we're voting to send House Bill 1538 as amended to calendar and rules. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. If you wish to be recorded nay, see the clerk. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to calendar and rules. Thank you, Madam Sponsor.
Thank you.
You're number 2 on our agenda as well, House Bill 1534, and it's traveling with an amendment according to my documentation here.
Motion.
Yes.
Well, we have a motion and a second on the bill. The amendment that is traveling with in my document is 5839. Is that correct?
Just a minute here, Chairman.
It does rewrite the bill?
Yes, 5839, that's correct.
Okay, no action is required in this committee since the amendment is already traveling with it, and I see no additional amendment to be added there. Go ahead,
None.
you're recognized to explain your bill.
We have many of you know we have an issue of a shortage of teachers. And this bill as introduced, creates a new practitioner license for persons seeking to become licensed teachers. And it requires the State Board of Education to approve alternative teacher endorsement and licensure pathways. The recruitment and retention of effective educators is an issue impacting public education in Tennessee. And without high-quality teachers, public school students suffer. So generally, if a teacher would like to add an endorsement, they are required to attend an educator preparation program and submit qualifying scores on an assessment. Data from the beginning of the school year indicated that 139 districts had approximately 1,070 total vacancies, which would include unfulfilled positions and positions filled with a teacher who is teaching without a license or outside of their endorsement area. What this bill seeks to do is address the issue by requiring the state board to approve a process that gives school districts the ability to create teacher training programs that provide the whatever that word is, content knowledge for additional endorsements at a local level. Under the bill, teachers would receive the training needed to add an additional endorsement without being required to enroll in an educator preparation program. The bill does require a teacher to take an assessment to add an endorsement unless they have been teaching for more than 6 years, received above expectation, or significantly above expectation in a level 4 or 5 on their most recent evaluation. Now, we did take care, there's an exception, however, that it would not apply to a teacher if they are adding an endorsement in grades K through 3 based on the Tennessee literacy success that we passed during the special session. So again, the goal of this bill, of this alternative endorsement pathway, is to increase retention of high-quality educators by providing additional flexibility at the local level and thus benefit our students. This allows the LEAs additional flexibility and gives our veteran educators mobility. And it's a win-win for our schools, our teachers, and especially our students. I do want to make a point that I found interesting, that there are 10 states in the union that do not do praxis tests. Massachusetts is one. It is the top state in the nation for performance, and they do not do a praxis. So praxis costs our teachers money out of their own pocket. And if these teachers are 4 and 5, they're highly qualified. They've been evaluated as best in their district, then why in the world should they not be able to follow through and do those and do that extra field? And one other note, I wanted to read a testimonial from a teacher who sent me this. I have many. This is one. This teacher says, I have taught in Tennessee for the past 6 years, but decided to obtain my master's through the university in Alabama. And now that it is time to take my praxis exam for Alabama, I contacted the Department of Education in Tennessee to make sure my scores would be reciprocated, just like they were for my undergrad praxis scores. But unfortunately, the Tennessee Department of Education will not accept the same test scores that Alabama requires, therefore forcing me to take an additional exam costing $425 compared to the $120 exam for Alabama. This was very frustrating to me as I try to further my education, but am met with obstacles from my own home state and the system I have worked for already for 6 years. I would thoroughly support anything that you could do to help us get rid of this praxis that's not needed for these certain groups of teachers and allow them to do what they do best, and that is teach. And our state is surrounded by 8 other states that a lot of these teachers are leaving our state and going to other states who don't have to deal with this type of endorsement or testing. So that's basically what the bill does.
Members, you've heard an explanation of the bill. Do we have questions of the sponsor? Representative Johnson, and then Representative Warner. Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of the concerns that I've heard, especially from folks who work at different universities across the state with teacher prep programs, are concerned about how much time they're going to actually have in this new field in a teacher prep program. Some teacher prep programs programs that call themselves that are 5 weeks. Others are, a year. Some are 4 years. So is there any minimum here of what that program needs to be?
Representative Weaver.
I just know if they've been teaching, I think I'm answering your question. If they've been teaching 6 years or more, then they've already got all this background history and all their evaluations are already showing how professional that they are. So it's 6 years.
One follow-up, then we'll go to the next one.
I'm talking about
Representative Johnson.
in prep for, so say you're teaching 6th grade science and then you're going to go and teach physics. I don't think you should go straight there without some preparation. And the concern is that we've talked about spending such a long time making sure that we have good quality teachers in the classroom. And the fear is that some of this is going to cause a problem with the quality of teachers in the classroom, that we get in a rush instead of making a better plan for folks who are in the classroom.
Chairlady Weaver, you're recognized.
If you don't mind, could we go out of session and I have someone who can really address that?
All right, without objection, we are out of session. Mr. Torres, would you come forward, please? Please give us your name, your organization, and your comments, please.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Ben Torres with the Tennessee School Board Association. And to your question, Representative, there are a few checks and balances in here, and I understand what you're saying. So when you look at the amendment on the bill, the state board has the ability to set up what those teacher training program requirements are. So they could state in rules or policies, depending on how they want to address the issue, how long those different preparation, you could call it program or different content areas would be based on what the content knowledge is. And then another check and balance in here, the district has to certify to the department that the teacher met the requirements established by the state board before the endorsement is even awarded. So the district would not only set up the program, get approval, they would also say that the teacher met all the requirements that the state board outlined to get the additional endorsement. Going back to Chairlady Weaver's point about the praxis in the 6 years, this would only be open for teachers that have already been in the classroom 6 years. So to get to the classroom in the first place, they've had a praxis and they've had classroom experience. I understand your point about switching from 6th grade to physics, and it would be a different train up, if you will, to get to that point, obviously. But I think the flexibility at the local level and removing some of the burdens that our teachers currently have to move about would hopefully be helpful in retaining those teachers.
Representative Johnson, you're recognized.
Will hopefully be helpful. And that's my concern right there. Hopefully it will. Again, it's another test to see if maybe that works because we've gotten ourselves in a situation. And I think there are better options. Thank you.
Mr. Torres, you have a comment?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have other questions of the witness? Vice Chair Reedy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Torres, do we also see this as a way to prevent maybe teacher burnout in certain subject matters?
Mr. Torres, you recognized.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would certainly hope so. You have teachers that they're teaching certain subjects and grades, and right now, the only way that they can move to a different area is they have to enroll in higher ed, they have to get the content knowledge, they have to take the praxis. And that in and of itself is a barrier for those teachers because it's all out of their own pocket. They're paying for it. So hopefully, if a district can set this up, you have teachers that they're not having to travel back and forth. They're not having to pay for anything out of their own pocket. They can do it where they work, where they live, and address not only the teacher burnout, but maybe we really hope it addresses the issues where we're lacking certified teachers, especially in rural districts. The greatest hope is this addresses teacher vacancies in rural districts.
Vice Chair Reedy, you recognize follow-up?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is my last, I guess it's not a question, but maybe you can verify it. And of course, I was on a Zoom call with a number of directors of schools, and I was asking about, because of COVID, remote learning, the burnout, the frustration maybe from our veteran teachers that are deciding they can retire, so they're going to go ahead and retire. But here was my question to them and the response coming back. And I asked about burnout. I said, when do you know a teacher is going to stick with it? They're going to make a career out of teaching. And it was one of the directors said, in 5 years, they know. So I'm looking at the 6 years and saying, hey, maybe we're stumbling onto something that will prevent that burnout, keep those teachers in a classroom, but maybe teaching a different subject matter. And of course, let's make a comment about our military experience. In the military, we do that too. Change MOS is going into a different field and becoming a career soldier. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Torres.
Chairman Cochran, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Torres, just to, sorry, I snuck in over here. And just to confirm, I mean, these teachers, if you made that jump to an area that may not be your initial expertise, they're still subject to the same testing requirements and grading criteria as every other teacher, correct?
We have other questions of our witness. I'm sorry, Mr. Torres, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to be recognized by the chair, representative. Yeah,
You're a wise soul.
If they did move to the other area, they would be evaluated just like any other teacher in that area. And I think it's important to also trust our directors, our principals, the leadership at the local level to make sure that teacher's getting what they need.
Representative Cochran?
And so essentially that's what we're doing here, right? We're giving locals discretion to move who they think are the best people into the best positions. Local control, what a novel idea. Thank you.
We have other questions of our guest. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Torres. You're excused.
Thank you,
We're
Mr.
back
Chairman.
in session. Representative Warner, did you have a question? You recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Representative Weaver. Could you explain again, you talked about on the front end, maybe the K through 3 teachers wouldn't fall under this?
Representative, probably Charlie Weaver.
Well, we passed in our special session in adding an additional endorsements in grades K through 3 because of the attention we're putting on literacy and reading, and we're really focused on that. And I thought that's kind of this bill kind of cuts that out.
Okay. Well, I think this is a great idea, and I just was wondering why those teachers there wouldn't fall under the same criteria.
If I understood the explanation correct, they already under
Oh, they are under?
the reading, the reading thing we passed. Is that not correct,
That's
Charlie?
correct. Through
I'm
special
sorry, I
session,
misunderstood you.
Other questions? The question has been called. Without objection, we are voting on sending House Bill 1534 to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. If you wish to be recorded as a nay, see the clerk. Ayes have it. The bill moves out to Finance, Ways and Means. Item number 3 on our agenda, House Bill 636 by Chairman Smith. Chairman Smith, we have a motion and a second. I show your bill traveling with an amendment 6804. Is that correct? You are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and committee. Yes, that is correct. That is, it is traveling with an amendment. And as I understand, the fine chairman has offered a friendly amendment as well.
You are correct. To consider this amendment, Vice Chair Reedy, would you take the gavel?
Chairman Reagan, you are recognized on Amendment 7276, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Motion?
We have a motion and a second. Thank you. This amendment clarifies that individuals must be declared dead only by a licensed physician. The bill did not specify in its original form who could declare someone dead. This basically ties it to those that we've already given authority to do that with elsewhere in the code. With that, I stand ready to answer questions.
Any question for Chairman Reagan on the amendment? Question's been called. All those in favor of putting Amendment 7276 on the bill, state by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition, no. Bill goes on. Chairman Reagan, you have the gavel, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. And can I ask you to withdraw that till I'm able to see if anybody else wants to ask questions? Okay, now. The question's been called. Without objection, we're going to vote on sending House Bill 15, pardon me, get to the right place here. House Bill 636 by Chair Lady Smith to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to Finance, Ways and Means. Next
Thank
on
you.
our agenda
Thank you,
is
Chair.
item number 4, House Bill 745 by Chairman Haston. We have a motion and a second. And as soon as we get the COVID cooties cleaned off there, you can come up. Chairman Haston, before I recognize you, I show your bill traveling with an amendment 7104. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I do have one other amendment that we'll be adding today, 7273.
Motion on the amendment.
Okay. The 7273 drafting code has been moved and seconded. Would the sponsor care to explain the amendment?
Yes, what this did was just clarify, put the correct mechanism in place for the funding for the years of 21-22 and 22-23, and that's all the amendment does.
Thank you for the explanation. Are there any questions of the sponsor on the amendment? We're voting to add amendment drafting code 7273 to House Bill 745. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The amendment is on the bill. Mr. Sponsor, you are now recognized for an explanation of your bill as amended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this bill does is offer our high school seniors the opportunity to take a nationally recognized career readiness assessment at no cost to them. Over 800 companies in Tennessee recognize and utilize the National Career Readiness Certificate, which can be earned by taking the ACT Work Keys assessment. Simply put, this bill just helps connect our students directly to our Tennessee workforce. And with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Members, you've heard an explanation of our bill as amended. Do we have questions of the sponsor of the bill? The questions have been called without objection. We are voting on sending House Bill 745 to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to Finance, Ways and Means. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Next on the agenda, item number 5, House Bill 1246 by Representative Calfee. We have a motion and a second. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. And Mr. Sponsor, I show your bill traveling with an amendment, drafting code 6546. Is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
And we need to add no amendment in this committee. You are recognized, sir, for an explanation of your bill as amended.
T. Hicks already started this process, and it's a Student Information Act, and it tells students what it's going to cost to go to college, to the TCAT, to the community college, and what kind of jobs are available after they get out. And it's now going to add one other thing, and that's the military, about signing bonuses and what kind of jobs are available in the military. So it gives students a good idea of what they're getting into, what it's going to cost, what the end result's going to be for them.
Members, you've heard an explanation of the bill as amended. Do we have questions of the sponsor? The question has been called. Do we have any objection to the question? Seeing none, we are voting on sending House Bill 1246 to Finance, Ways and Means. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Bill moves out to Finance, Ways and Means. Mr. Vice Chair, you have the gavel for the next two bills.
House Bill 577, item number 6 on the calendar. We've got a motion and a second. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized on House Bill 577, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is traveling with an amendment. My drafting code on the amendment is 6665. I don't believe we have any to add here, so
Please go ahead and explain your bill, sir.
thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this,
It's
it's already on it.
Okay.
The purpose of this bill is to ensure that the family life curriculum information meets state standards. In addition, it allows a parent of a student to request to review the information and opt out of any portion of the family life curriculum without penalty to the student. The bill does not change state requirements concerning contraception information. That information, according to state standards, still emphasizes that abstinence is the only method that removes all risk of sexually transmitted disease and pregnancy. Otherwise, the information is unchanged from what's already in the code. With that explanation, I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any questions for the chairman? Representative Johnson, please.
In that amendment, it excluded, it excluded post-secondary, correct?
That's correct. Post-secondary is not an issue in this bill.
Thank you.
Representative Stewart.
Does this bill, as you're intending it, change, I'm looking at the fiscal memo, the actual nature of distribution of birth control on school property?
No, sir, it does not change anything that's already in code other than what the amendment says.
Yeah, because I'm reading the amendment, but then the fiscal memorandum says, that, and it seems a little ambiguous, the fiscal memorandum says prohibits the distribution of contraception on school property. Do you believe that's a change that your bill as amended is affecting?
Are you looking at the fiscal note for the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, I don't see it. What portion are you looking
Am I?
at?
I'm pulling it up from the amendment.
It
I'm
does
looking at
not
the
change what is already in law.
Okay, so your intent is that if something can be, in terms of actual contraception, your intent is not to change the laws that exist today.
That is correct, sir. Otherwise, the fiscal note would be unreasonable.
I agree with you on that. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill as amended? Question on the bill. Question has been called. All those in favor of sending House Bill 577 to calendar and rules signify by saying aye. Any opposition, nay. Bill moves on. If you want to be documented as a no, see the clerk, please. Last item on the calendar, House Bill 580 by Chairman Reagan. We've got a motion and a second. Traveling with the bill is Amendment 7245. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It should also be traveling with Amendment 5670. Is that correct? Or has that been rolled together?
They were rolled together,
Okay,
sir.
disregard then. This bill is a cleanup bill that was originally carried by Chairman Dunn last session. It's been put together primarily to correct issues in our code based on Title 4, Chapter 5, Section 102, and subparagraphs 10 and 12. Essentially, those define what rules are and what policies are. We had to go back through the code because of those changes and find a lot of places in our code and correct those references so that they align with the current code. Additionally, the Department of Education came forward with items that they wanted to add into it at this go around that were not on Chairman Dunn's original bill. And there are a total of, I think, 48 cleanup items on this bill. 49. With that, I stand ready to answer questions. If you want, I can go through each and every one of those. I have them outlined in my talking points, but it's up to you.
Any questions for Chairman Reagan on the bill as amended? With that, a lengthy amendment. The question has been called. If there's no objection, all those in favor of sending House Bill 580 to calendar and rules signify by saying aye. Any nay? Bill passes out, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, that completes the calendar. The gavel is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, we will be meeting as a joint subcommittee or with the joint subcommittee on next Monday, April 26th at 11 a.m. This review will also have a presentation by our new comptroller, Comptroller Mumpower. So make sure you plan to attend. In addition, other bills, of course, will be heard at 1400 in a regular House committee at that time. Do we have any business to bring before the committee before we adjourn? Seeing none, any objection to adjournment? Seeing none, we're adjourned.